They laughed at her as if her life were a joke written for their entertainment. In the narrow, peeling hallway of the factory dormitory, where the smell of sweat and rust clung to the walls, Amina stood clutching her small child against her chest while the others pointed and whispered. Their laughter echoed like stones thrown against fragile glass. She kept her head down, but her eyes burned with quiet dignity. If you believe kindness and second chances still matter in this world, take a moment right now to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. Stories like this remind us that compassion can change everything. Amina had always been a silent worker. She arrived before sunrise, swept the concrete floors, lifted heavy sacks, and stayed long after others had clocked out. Her hands were rough, her back constantly aching, yet she never complained. What people could not understand, what they refused to understand, was why she had chosen to keep her child when the father was rumored to be nothing more than a beggar who wandered the streets in torn clothes. To them, it was shameful. To her, it was love. They called the child names when they thought she couldn't hear. They told her she had ruined her life. Some even suggested she give the boy away to an orphanage so she could start fresh. But Amina would simply pull her son closer. At night, in the cramped room with flickering lights, she would kiss his forehead and whisper silent prayers that he would never feel the sting of humiliation she endured daily. What no one knew was that the man they mocked, the quiet figure who sometimes waited outside the factory gates, was not what he seemed. His name was Daniel. To the world he looked like a wanderer, wearing faded jackets and dusty boots. He often sat by the roadside, speaking gently to the elderly and giving coins to children who begged. The factory workers saw him once holding Amina's baby and laughed louder than ever. They assumed she had fallen for a man with nothing, but Daniel was watching. Years ago, Daniel had inherited an empire built by his late father, a powerful businessman who owned much of the city's real estate, transportation lines, and manufacturing plants, including the very factory where Amina worked. Unlike his father, Daniel believed wealth should be understood before it was spent. After taking control of the company, he chose to walk the streets anonymously. He wanted to see how his city breathed, how his workers lived, and whether his father's empire stood on justice or quiet suffering. That was when he met Amina. He first noticed her when she gave her lunch, her only meal of the day, to an elderly woman shivering near the bus station. She did not know he was watching. She did not expect praise. She simply acted. Later, when they spoke for the first time, she treated him like any other human being. She did not see a beggar. She saw a man. She listened when he talked. She laughed softly at his dry humor. In a world obsessed with status, she offered him something rare: sincerity. When she discovered she was pregnant, Daniel was away on business abroad, finalizing legal transitions of ownership. Rumors spread quickly when her belly began to show. By the time Daniel returned months later, the factory gossip had hardened into cruelty. He watched from a distance as they humiliated her in the hallway, as they mocked her for loving someone they believed beneath them. The breaking point came on a rainy afternoon. The factory manager, eager to impress upper executives, publicly accused Amina of tarnishing the company's reputation. In front of everyone, he threatened to fire her, claiming that her poor choices reflected badly on the workforce. The laughter returned, sharper this time. Her son, now a toddler, clung to her dress, frightened by the noise. Amina felt her knees weaken, but she refused to beg. She had survived hunger, abandonment, and loneliness. She would survive this too. She lifted her chin, even as tears blurred her vision. That was when a convoy of black cars pulled into the muddy factory yard. The workers fell silent as suited executives stepped out, umbrellas shielding them from the rain. At the center was Daniel, no longer dressed in worn clothes but in a tailored suit that seemed to command the storm itself. His presence shifted the air. The manager rushed forward, bowing slightly, unaware of what was about to unfold. Daniel walked past him without acknowledgement. His eyes searched until they found Amina standing frozen in disbelief. He knelt gently before the child, wiping a tear from the boy's cheek with a tenderness that stunned everyone watching. In a calm but unwavering voice, Daniel announced that he was the majority owner of the company and the city's largest shareholder. He explained that he had spent months observing the lives of his workers, learning about their struggles, and assessing the integrity of his leadership team. What he had witnessed that day, he said, was not weakness from Amina, but cruelty from those who judged her. The hallway that once echoed with laughter now trembled with silence. The manager was dismissed on the spot. Policies were restructured, worker welfare programs were introduced, fair wages were enforced. But Daniel's most powerful act was not corporate, it was personal. He took Amina's hand in front of everyone, not as a grand display of wealth, but as a declaration of respect. He acknowledged her strength, her compassion, and her unwavering courage to love without shame. The very people who had mocked her now avoided her gaze. Some apologized quietly, others simply stood stunned, realizing how shallow their judgments had been. Amina did not seek revenge. She only asked that no one else be humiliated for circumstances they did not understand. In the months that followed, the factory transformed. Break rooms were renovated, childcare support was introduced for working mothers, community programs flourished across the city. Daniel ensured his empire would no longer operate in ignorance. And Amina, once ridiculed in a crumbling hallway, became a symbol of quiet resilience. She did not change because of wealth. She had always been rich, in heart, in patience, in grace. The difference was that now the world could see it. Before we reach the end, take a moment to comment, "Kindness wins," if you believe love and humility are stronger than judgment. Your words help spread stories like this to others who need hope. Years later, when people spoke of the transformation of the city, they often credited Daniel's leadership. But those who knew the truth understood that it began with a woman who refused to let cruelty define her worth. It began with a mother who chose love despite humiliation. It began with the quiet power of seeing humanity where others saw status. If this story touched your heart even a little, please like, share, and tell us your thoughts below. Your engagement helps these stories reach more people who might be struggling silently today. Because sometimes the person the world calls a beggar may be the one who owns everything, and the person the world mocks may be the strongest soul in the room.